Class, today we got to think about and focus some more on craftsmanship. So your assignment for the day is pretty simple. You should already have your ribbons drawn. Double check, make sure you have 3 ribbons. Make sure that you have some overlapping. That means one ribbon is drawn on top of another somewhere. Okay, your assignment today is to simply shade and fill the background. You want your ribbons to be white. You don't want to add any shading to those. That'll be the next step that we focus on. But I want you to focus on the background first. Now, you're going to pick colored pencil and you're going to use one color, and the entire background needs to be shaded using that color. So I've demonstrated a couple things and a couple of examples to kind of show you differences in craftsmanship. Obviously, this part down here is shaded quite a bit neater than some of these parts up here. As I'm looking at some of your examples, I'm seeing quite a bit of this. Okay, this is a project. Okay, we want to complete your best work possible. So today I want to explain how you can do that. Okay, when you are shading, we don't want these little gaps and white spaces in your shading. Okay, you also want to try to make sure that the direction of your pencil lines all go the same direction. You don't want to shade one direction and then come back in another direction. It looks sloppy. Okay, so in order to kind of make this a little bit neater, I do recommend that you come in different directions to do your outline. It's going to be a little bit easier to shade along the line of that. Okay, so turn your page. So you're doing that. When you shade, I want you to think about shading in a series of circles. So kind of like a loop or a spring. Only when we shade, we want that loop to be super close to and tight together. Okay, so we don't want to shade in a zigzag like this. Okay, so this is bad. This is what we not want to do. All right, this is good. This is what we want to achieve. Okay, so if we think about doing little circles like that, and you think about doing the circles really close together so they overlap, that should be the motion of your pencil as you are shading with your hands. So if I go back to my original that I showed you here, what I would recommend is using that kind of circular motion that I demonstrated. Come back in and shade on top of and fill in any little gaps that you can see in your shading. Now, when I go over that, notice how, I'm shading kind of big here, notice how I can still see these lines. If you can still see lines where you've gone in a different direction, just do a second layer of shading on top of the first in that direction. So what you want to aim for and try to achieve as you are filling all of this in, we want this to look like one smooth, even color. If you have any variations in that, just go back in and try to smooth that out. So you want to think a lot about the amount of pressure that you are applying on the paper with your pencil and try to do that. It's totally okay to do just kind of a single light color like this. That is fine as long as you're trying to shade it as neatly as possible. If you want to shoot and aim a little bit higher for a little bit nicer and better project, I would recommend instead that you try to shade as dark and bright as possible. So after you've added an all over color or value, then come back in and fill that in rather dark with your pencil. I think you will find as you take a look at the examples, if you do try to shade a lot darker or brighter, the end result is going to kind of pop out and look quite a bit nicer. It is going to take you quite a bit more time to achieve shading that's a little bit darker and brighter like this. So I still need to go kind of add that in. But the finished product is going to look a lot nicer. Okay, so assignment for the day, completely shade and fill in the background. Make it look as nice and neat as possible. all your pencil lines in one direction and try to make sure that you don't have any gaps and white spaces in your shading.